The school is gone, but if you go on to Bing Bird's Eye View and search Waycross Road in Cincinnati, you can still see the overhead of Cameron Park Elementary School. And here it is. Then we'll, in the upper left corner of the building, there's a tree. And that's the only thing that's there anymore. So it'll give you a perspective as we kind of do a mock tour of Cameron Park Elementary School. This tree is the corner of the classroom buildings, and that upper level was the back parking lot and our playground with no playground equipment. This would have been the line of the classrooms, whether you were in 4th, 5th, or 6th grade. My 4th grade teacher was Mrs. Batchy, who was very pretty. The only thing I remember about 4th grade was I ran for class president, and to ensure that I won, I promised everybody a piece of candy if they voted for me. Of course, I won by a landslide, but I don't remember ever delivering on the candy promise. It was the first time I ever got paddled, too, for cheating on the Scholastic Reading Aptitude Tests, or SRA. Mr. Pressler delivered the blows. Larry, what do you remember about this area right here that we're kind of in a classroom right now?
Right here is Mrs. Wiedock's 5th grade class. And what I remember most was colluding and making fun of her, and this became a little private conspiracy of ours, and she forbade us to congregate in more than threes on the playground. And Emily Bart took this and ran with it and would write little satirical comments about totalitarianism. So it was sort of the birth of our political consciousness, whether we knew it or not. It was hilarious. Then right beyond that was Mr. Johnstone's, and the rest of the 5th grade, including John, was down in that room. And there is the tetherball.
We don't know the exact spot of the infamous tetherball pole, our only source of exercise and recreation. But the one thing we do remember, that there was one rule, and made famous by Tim Kelch, which was no kelching. Kelching was the act of grabbing the tetherball by the rope right at the connecting point and just winging it so it would wrap around the pole so fast you didn't have a chance to stop it. 5th grade, my teacher was Mrs. Von Hagen, and I'm not sure who was in my class then, but that was a bad year for me. Probably my worst report card because the teacher hated me. Larry talked about 6th grade, and we got our first male teacher, Mr. Johnstone. Classroom would have been maybe right about over there. That was a fun year. Probably the year I really hooked up with Dave Voder, and we honed our humor skills. A lot of crazy things happened in 6th grade. Tim Smith was in our class, and I was always amazed at how long he could sustain a belch. I think the record was 15 seconds or something like that, but you know, when you're a 6th grader, those are quite interesting activities. It was my first move into sales because I wanted, in the worst way, to work in the cafeteria dish room because you got a free lunch for that. And there weren't any spots available, so what I did is I stood by the window and cleaned off the plates and put the silverware in there, and the lunch ladies felt so bad for me that I finally did get the job. That enabled Dave Oder and myself to construct the world's largest mashed potato ball, and we took it out on the playground on a snowy day and got everybody to think that that was actually a snowball. One of the things Dave and I did on Sundays, we would help the janitor take chairs down in the gymnasium because there was a local church that didn't have its own building, and they would use it for church services. Our compensation was a quarter, a bottle of pop from the pop machine, and he'd pull out the Nissan trampoline and we get to jump on it. And I can't even imagine the liability in today's world of him allowing us to do that. But that was just compensation for us as far as we were concerned. shame we didn't get this filmed last year when it was still there, but you could probably get an idea of where we're standing. We were probably right on the edge of the playground right here, and the two-story classrooms to the right of us. And I'll correct myself on an earlier thing. This is Forest Park Swim Club. You know, it's very upscale place for Forest Parkers to join. We didn't get to join till '69. I don't know if there's any other memories of this open field, Larry.
Yeah, definitely. There was a creek that used to run down here.
I remember that.
The construction really changes things.
Yeah.
But John and I and, perhaps Rich Ryder, maybe John Dietrichson, I can't remember the personnel, Steve Lacey, we would come down here and hunt for rocks. And John, one time, hoping to impress us, palmed a little special rock or something. And pretended to play down here. I never some of it, and it definitely made the afternoon more interesting anyway.
Stupid me, the rock I selected to impress Larry with, I think was actually a piece of lead. And Larry knew better than there would never be a pristine piece of lead in this creek. Now you're seeing these houses here. They didn't exist when we went to school here. This was the B section. I think Nick Chirolis told me he moved down here after he moved out of the K section. But Forest Park was in no way connected by road to the next community over, which is Hollydale. And if you read the history of that, you can kind of see the injustice of what was done in what was a very lily white community when we were growing up here. And Hollydale was 100% minority. It's actually become a little historical neighborhood in Cincinnati when things were very segregated. Seventh grade was an interesting time. We had an opportunity to go to this majestic building in Green Hills, still here, called the Community Building. What had occurred was we were supposed to move into Forest Park Middle School in the fall of '68, but due to strikes, we did this new concept called split session. The Green Hills folks went from 7 in the morning until noon, and we were bussed up here for 12:30 to 5 shift. We were only here a half a semester, and then we moved in. For me, this was the year that I discovered girls. They were everywhere. I think I was Bonnie Bell's boyfriend for about 72 hours, immediately followed by being Cindy Katz's boyfriend for 48 hours. And then I settled in on Debbie Ogletree, who was actually a year older than us. First girl I ever kissed. Probably the most traumatic thing about attending 7th grade was this was the first year that our gym teacher, Mr. Westerkamp, made us shower in front of other people. Quite traumatic for me. The other thing that I remember was this was probably the last year that girls had to wear garters. Now why do I know that? Is because the skirts were getting a lot shorter and there were stairs in this school, so do the math. I think pantyhose was all the rage by the next year. Well, in the spring of 1969, we finally got to move into our brand new Forest Park Middle School. This was for our 7th and 8th grade years. My homeroom was Mrs. Pennycook in 7th grade. It was in that corner. The main office was right in the middle, and the school was run by Mr. Cron, who had a wonderful complexion. If you remember, over here, in the late summer, you would dash over on your bike or whatever and see the posting of the homerooms, and you could find out if your friends were going to be in your homeroom in 8th grade, and more often than not, they weren't. So you were like traumatized. And then you found out later that the people that were in your homeroom were pretty cool, and they might have ended up being some of your best friends. Because it was just a half year, I don't know too much more about 7th grade. Now 8th grade was really exciting. Mr. Sullivan was my homeroom teacher, and most all of my friends were in that class. It was a great year. Dave Oder, Betsy Rames, Beth Bolsey, Karen Burton, Diane Nitz, a lot of good-looking girls in our class. But we had a lot of fun and had some great teachers. I remember Miss Disher, our English teacher, enjoyed the heck out of that class because she was fairly progressive. Larry, what do you remember about 8th grade?
Oh, elitism. We took a math test, and some of us got put into the algebra class. That was 8DU from Mr. Dugan. And that kind of separated me from John pretty much for good until today. But we had some pretty good-looking girls in that class, too.
I liked you too, Martha. We will see you again. This was the year that I moved away. Dad got into the Rockwell in Pittsburgh and was traumatized for several years, leaving a lot of good friends. It's nice to see most of these buildings are still intact and operating as they were.